Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Full Steam Ahead, Part 2. We are so glad to have you all join us. Some of you all may be joining us as you attended the Part 1 and you're looking forward to Part 2. For those of you who did not join us the last time, you're in for a treat. This is Amy Quincy, and I am sitting next to our wonderful teacher, Kim Brooks, who's going to be sharing about how she's been incorporating the KEA into her STEAM kindergarten classroom. So welcome, everybody. So in case folks don't realize, we have started the webinar, hoping you can hear us. If you can't hear us, hopefully folks are reading the screen and typing a comment into the question box. So we'll pause just a minute and see if there are folks who cannot hear us or hopefully can hear us. All right, we're not finding any comments or questions in the chat box as far as whether you can hear us, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Amy Quincy. I am one of the project leads for the NC-K3 formative assessment work at the Department of Public Instruction. And sitting with me is Kim Brooks.
Hey, how are you?
And Kim is a kindergarten teacher at Hawks Nest STEAM Academy in Gaston County Schools. So welcome, welcome, Kim. I am just going to sit back and turn it over to her. Let us know, make sure that you all can hear.
All right, I hope everybody's doing great this afternoon. I'm going to try and pick up kind of where I left off with Part 1. For those of you who maybe weren't here for Part 1, again, my name is Kim Brooks. I'm a kindergarten teacher in Gaston County Schools at Hawks Nest STEAM Academy. I have been at Hawks Nest STEAM Academy for 2 years. Prior to that, I did some district level work, and then I taught kindergarten at a different school in our district as well. And I've also taught pre-K also in our district. So just to give you a little bit of background about me. And last time we met, I just really started off with letting you know that the activities you see today are activities that anybody can do and implement in their classroom. You don't have to be at a STEAM academy by any means to be able to do these activities. So I just hopefully that you'll be able to see something that you may be able to do with your students, and that will also help you to collect some formative assessment data so that you can also help plan and drive instruction for your students and really think about the whole child. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with where I left off last time. One thing that I didn't talk about before I started was the impact that I've seen with my students who maybe have struggled a little bit academically in the classroom related to reading or math, but who I have seen really take these project-based activities, these problem-based activities, and so sometimes they were my students who could really implement them successfully and see a lot of positive feedback. And sometimes they were my first ones who could really get that design process and persevered and stayed persistent with the activity. They were highly engaged. They were, their approach to learning. I was really able to see that through the activities, or maybe I didn't always see that when I was doing maybe just a standalone reading assessment or a standalone math assessment. So I really want to highlight that and really think about that as you're thinking about what kinds of activities could I do with my students and what may I see from the different learners in my classroom. So last time I talked about cubes, cardboard, and Legos. I started with that. Anybody can use those items in their classroom to implement any kind of design or open-ended learning in their classroom to really look at the formative assessment process, to look at the different constructs related to kindergarten entry assessment. So I'm not going to talk a lot about that today because that webinar is recorded. You will be able to go back and listen to that. So I'm going to pick right up where I left off. And I started transitioning into from our exploration time, our design and build time, into the storybook STEAM activities. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is related, kind of taking you through our year this year, November. So 'twas the night before Thanksgiving, we read this book, and I said, okay, what kind of project could we do? What kind of design project could we do with this book that would not only allow me to see how they use their fine motor development, how they use their problem solving skills, looking at grip and manipulation, hand dominance, how do they approach an activity, how do they persevere with an activity, do they give up the activity, do they stay engaged in the activity, do they ask peer for help? So we came up with this activity where we were just using clothespins and craft sticks, and the students had to design a table, a Thanksgiving Day table, because at the end of this book, all the turkeys get to leave the farm and they get to go sit around a table with families and eat Thanksgiving dinner with the families. So we kind of thought that would be a great way to spark our design and build project with this book, and to be able to allow us to see the problem solving process that the students go through. So as you can see here on the screen, definitely able to really zero in on grip and manipulation. A lot of students have never held a clothespin. They haven't, used that movement. So I was really able to see how were they able to hold on to the clothespin? Were they able to maneuver and undo the clothespin and, close it back and hook it onto the craft sticks. So that really helped me to look at my fine motor development. And then also looking at crossing the midline, were they using both sides of their body as they were manipulating the clothespins? And you can kind of see that down here with Amin here in the green, and Anderson down here working with his clothespins and his craft sticks. And materials were provided, no example was given. They worked individually with this activity, so I was really noticing how did they approach the problem. They had to build a table that would hold the counters you can see down here that Anderson is testing out his table with. So I had a cup full of counters, and so the challenge was you had to build a table that would hold and see how many counters it would hold. You have craft sticks, you have clothespins, so very open-ended, no example was provided. So I was really trying to look at problem solving. Did they just start playing with the clothespins and craft sticks? Did they seek out help? Did they look to a peer for support and ideas? Did they use trial and error to complete their build? I was also looking at, did they persevere in this assigned activity? This is more of an assigned type of activity, still with a lot of open-endedness as far as how they could approach it when I'm thinking about approaches to learning. But I was looking to see, are they able to get engaged in the activity and ignore those distractions? When they get off task, are they able to get back on the task with teacher redirection? Do they look to see what other kids are doing to help them to know what maybe they should be doing with the material? So that's going to help me to look at when I do future projects and design projects to help support the children along that problem solving construct progression, which I did opt into the other constructs. So that's one that is optional if you're opting into other constructs. It's not a required construct. But I really felt like it was important to look at that with relationship to the activities that we're doing with a lot of our design and build time. Also, emotional literacy. I talked a little bit about this last time when I talked about Rosie Revere Engineer. A lot of these activities, when you're tying them back to a book, always almost provide a way to discuss more about the book that was read. Where were the turkeys sitting at the end of the book versus where were the turkeys at the beginning of the book? How did the turkeys feel at the end of the story? So almost every time we do these design and build projects around a book, we're always able to really tie it back and get that emotional literacy aspect in there as well. Following directions. Were students able to follow the directions of the challenge? Were they able to follow the 3-step directive? Use the craft sticks and clothespins to create a Thanksgiving table that the turkeys and their families can sit around at Thanksgiving. Test your design by seeing how many counters the table can hold. So we were giving them lots of directions to be able to do that too. So just, sometimes you don't think about it, but you're giving directions a lot, even when you're doing activities like this. And it's a great way to see who is able to follow through with those directives, or where we need to support them? Do we need to break the directions down? And being able to note that, and you can use that as evidence for your kindergarten entry assessment. And also counting objects was a big one with this one too, because they were counting how many counters their table could hold. And what's interesting is, as far as collecting the evidence throughout the activities, I talked about last time, I do use the app, the Kindergarten Entry Assessment, the NCK3 Formative Assessment app, going around and taking pictures while the students are engaged in the activities, and then I can easily upload that information from the app to the platform. I can even indicate what developmental domain I'm looking at, what construct I'm looking at, where they are falling out within the progression, looking at where they are now, and then assign that piece of evidence to one child or more than one child. So if you're not using the app, I would highly recommend it. It is great. You can use it on an iPad. And then also, like I said before too, I do use Seesaw a lot as well in my classroom because that allows the students to gather their own evidence, and then I can look at that later on Seesaw. And again, if you are interested in using Seesaw, you can, any kind of picture or video that the students put on there can be downloaded and then uploaded to your device and then uploaded to the platform. All right, so moving along through our year, it took us into December, where we did some more activities, storybook activities related to the gingerbread boy and the gingerbread girl. And this was more of a problem-based activity. The students had to build a hideout for the gingerbread boy so he could get away from the fox. And they were only allowed to use the 10 gumdrops. They could use as many toothpicks as they wanted to, but again, only 10 gumdrops. So we're already counting objects, can they count out the 10 gumdrops that they need for the activity? And then fine motor, of course, grip and manipulation and hand dominance, were they able to hold the gumdrop and the toothpick at the same time? Were they able to make them stay together? And I'm going to try and show a video. Sometimes the audio does not come through. So Lauren, if you will let me know if you can't hear our video. But I'm going to click on this little video of B. What is great about these storybook STEAM activities is almost always the students engage in a retell or tell you about some part of the story that demonstrates their understanding of the story, which is definitely one of our literature standards that we're working on with students retelling stories. So I'm going to try and see if this will play for us. Okay, so you could see there, B did that on Seesaw. I wasn't there. I didn't have to be there. I could go back and listen to that recording of B later, but she was definitely giving me that story sequence of what needed to happen in order for what was going to happen to the gingerbread girl if they weren't in the hideout getting across, the river from the fox and preventing to being eaten. So that's just a little sample of the type of evidence you can get from Seesaw as well, to be able to use when you're downloading and putting evidence into the KEA platform. Again, following directions, we definitely can collect evidence here for that. Were they able to follow multi-step directions of the project, like eat only one gumdrop before starting their project? Not 10, only one. Use only 10 gumdrops and as many toothpicks as you need to build your hideout for the gingerbread boy or girl. And then they had to test their project to see if it holds the gingerbread boy or girl. And then they had to record on Seesaw and present their project and what they did. And again, I think yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
I was just going to say the video kind of went out in the sound, and I was just wondering if maybe you could describe what the little girl said in the video.
Okay, yes. And so I was afraid about that. Sometimes the videos don't always, the video doesn't always come up as well as we want it to with the webinar. B was just saying, I built a hideout for the gingerbread girl so that she could get away from the fox. So she didn't have to go across the river and get eaten by the fox. So she was showing and demonstrating her understanding of what was going to happen to the gingerbread girl if she didn't get into the hideout, which relating that back to what actually happened in the story, which is showing me that she's able to understand what was happening in the story and demonstrating some retell. Also, problem solving, we put constraints on the project. You could only use 10 gumdrops, and a lot of them would say, I need more gumdrops, I need more gumdrops. And we'd have to go around and say, well, what could you do differently? How could you change your design? So we're asking a lot of high level questioning to be able to get them to think in different directions and to really problem solve. And I really was able to look and see, how do they plan activity, how they think about, how they draw it out? Do they just start building right away? Are they more hesitant? Are they looking at their peers to see how they're building with the gumdrops? And do they use trial and error? Do they revise their design? Are they just simply copying maybe what somebody else had done? And I just put some pictures here of some of the different designs that we saw throughout the project. Also related to the problem solving, really looking to see perseverance. Were they able to stay focused? What happened if they got distracted? Was it more that they were getting frustrated? What happened when they got frustrated? Were they able to come back to the activity? Maybe they needed some teacher redirection. Maybe they needed teacher support. Because sometimes we do see the kids get a little frustrated when they're doing some of these projects, and that's okay, because that helps me to know what I can do to help support them when they're moving along that emotional regulation construct progression as well. All right, moving along. Storybook STEAM, the snowy day. We actually went and saw the snowy day in Charlotte at the Imagine on Children's Theater. We love Peter. We love all stories about Peter from Ezra Jack Keats. So these projects were a little bit different in that we presented them more as a problem. So you're playing outside in the snow, your mittens get wet, you need to build a clothesline to hang your wet mittens. You can only use pipe cleaners, Play-Doh, and craft sticks. And again, they had unlimited use. We didn't put constraints as far as how many. So again, looking to see in that problem solving, are they able to get started right away? What happens when they get frustrated? And again, putting those constraints on them, sometimes they had to really think about how am I going to do this and how do I get started? Did they want to work with a peer? Did they look at what their peers were doing, or did they do it more independently? Also looking at grip and manipulation, hand dominance. Are they able to use both hands? Are they able to make the straws stick together and use both hands to do that? And then up here with the clothespin, and this is Anderson up here in the corner. And you can see, using the Play-Doh, I was looking at how he was holding the Play-Doh, how he was using the Play-Doh to make that into the shape that he needed to be able to have a base, if you will, for his craft sticks. How was he able to get those pipe cleaners on there? That takes a lot of fine motor skill to be able to, you can see he's wrapped them around. And I think what he did is he built them first and made loops, and then he put them on there. And then, looking to see, I remember it didn't always work the first time. So he had to go back and adjust how he was going to get those pipe cleaners on there. And it takes a lot of fine motor development. And of course, with the clothespins as well, being able to open and close the clothespins, that's a lot of fine motor control. We're looking at grip and manipulation again there. We're looking at hand dominance as well. And with the tape, using tape can be tricky. And we also let the kids use scissors down here where you see the straws. What this project was down here was, we said, it's a snow day, you're at home, and you have to help your parents scoop the driveway. And you have to design a shovel, and you have to scoop up snow, which we did cotton balls. So they were given straws, tape. Again, there weren't any constraints. It was just, go at it. Here's your scissors, here's your straws, here's your tape. And again, looking to see how did they get started with this. I will say that these activities are so engaging that very rarely, the kids are so excited that they get to have a lot of control in this process. And we're really looking at the process over the product. And if it doesn't work the first time, they're going back and we're encouraging them to think about, rather than just giving up, let's persevere. Let's think about what could we do differently? How could we change this design? What do we need to add? What do we need to take away? What, how are we going to go about fixing this problem that my shovel doesn't work or my clothesline doesn't work? So we really get so much evidence that we can use for the kindergarten entry assessment and the formative assessment process that really helps us to plan for the instruction for our students. So again, following directions as well. Of course, all of these activities, even though they're very open-ended, there are some directions in there. I always want my kids to record on Seesaw. So everything you're seeing here is pretty much the kids have gathered this evidence. It wasn't me, it was the kids, and they posted it on Seesaw. And you can see with the hideouts we did, actually it was the kids are having a snowball fight and you need to design a hideout so that you can hide away from the kids that are having a snowball fight. So you can see we used just marshmallows and toothpicks, simple stuff here, straws, toothpicks, marshmallows, and you can see the different hideouts that the kids were making, and that we were able to tie back again emotional literacy to the snowy day, because in the book Peter goes and the big boys are having a snowball fight on the hill, and he says he's not allowed to do that. So a lot of times we always just naturally get into the emotional literacy aspects of the story. You know, how would Peter have felt? Do you think he would have built a hideout if he could have? How did you feel about Peter not being able to go play with the boys on the hill? You know, I didn't think I should be able to do that either because I'm too smaller. I really wanted to do it because I can beat the big kids with snowball fights. So we were able to get a lot of different responses from the students related to that emotional literacy piece as well. All right, I'm going to keep moving quickly here. I'm going to keep going. We did do a storybook STEAM project related to the Three Billy Goats Gruff. Again, it was toothpicks and marshmallows with the bridge, so I'm going to keep going through that. Want to share one of our big projects that we did related to Henri Matisse. This was part of our STEAM fair, and our class decided to focus on the A in STEAM, and we did art. And I just happened to have gone to our book fair, and I'm very into finding more out about artists, and they had a children's book about Henri Matisse, and I said, I've got to have that. So I read it to the kids, and we decided we're going to research Henri Matisse. This is going to be our project for our STEAM fair. So we researched Henri Matisse. I went to the library. We got different books about Matisse. We read the books about Matisse. I pulled in the librarian. She was also doing Matisse projects and books with the kids and videos and studying the artwork in the library. So it was really a group effort. She collaborated with me on this project. And so the kids had to design based on using paper collage materials, because after Henri Matisse got to a point where he couldn't paint anymore, he used scissors and he shaped out of paper. How appropriate is that for kindergartners? So we were using scissors, we were making our designs, again, grip and manipulation, hand dominance, how do they use the scissors? But not only were they creating their project, which they got to design whatever they wanted for their artwork, we were also presenting our artwork. And so to present our artwork, we used a green screen, the Do Ink app, and the kids recorded themselves. And I can't play the video for you because sometimes the videos don't come up as we noticed. But right over here, this is Bennett, and this is her green screen video. And she talked about what she learned about Henri Matisse and that he inspired her to draw this heart and cut it out. And she's got her B for Bennett up there. So she was presenting her artwork. So on Seesaw, you can print QR codes. So what I did is I uploaded the Do Ink project. The great thing about Seesaw, you can app smash. You can take other apps and put them into Seesaw so you can share it with your parents. And so I put her green screen project, I did all the kids and put them in Seesaw, created a QR code for each student. And then on their artwork at our exhibit, at our STEAM fair, was their QR code with their presentation and their artwork. So anybody coming by could just QR code the artwork and they could hear the child's presentation about what they were working on, how they created the design, how they came up with their idea. So you can see some of the different ones. Tucker loves fire trucks. This boy is going to be a firefighter. His uncle is a firefighter. He comes in firefighter wear and gear. So how appropriate that he cut out a fire truck. Elaine had just had her birthday, and so she made a birthday cake out of all different kinds of shapes. And then, of course, we have Bennett with her heart. So this was an amazing project, really, to see. We also did some other things with this where the kids had to paint or design a pole with chalk on the end to paint on a ceiling like Matisse did, because he was in a wheelchair, but he would paint, still wanted to paint. So he would paint on his ceiling from a wheelchair with a pole and a paintbrush attached to it, which is just a great opportunity for me to say to the kids, how could we do this in our classroom? So we put paper underneath the tables and the kids had to design their own pole that they could paint with under the table on the paper. So many opportunities to look at formative assessment with grip and manipulation, hand dominance, how do they use the scissors? Again, we're looking at problem solving, perseverance, how do they approach their learning? We're getting all of those great opportunities for formative assessment data just through these activities that are just naturally occurring in the classroom. I'm not doing anything extra to be able to complete my KEA assessment evidence and to be able to look at how my kids are progressing on the constructs. I'm just using what I'm already doing in my classroom to complete that KEA formative assessment. All right, we have 5 minutes and that's perfect. We are right on schedule. I just wanted to take some time to talk to you about how I do use technology to enhance formative assessment. You've heard me talk about Seesaw. You've heard me talk about the app, which you see that right here on the screen, the NCK3 Formative Assessment app. This is a lifesaver. It is so quick. It makes it so easy. I just have my iPad and walking around. I have my checklist. I have my kids' names on there. And as I'm during writing workshop, for example, is a great time for me to look at how they're holding their pencil, what hand they are using. Are they crossing the midline? I can get all 3 pieces of those evidence by one picture or one video with the app while they're working and writing workshop. Or I can get that also from when they're maybe designing and sketching out their design to build with their Legos or to build with their cubes. And I can use that one piece of evidence for 3 constructs. And the app, again, makes it so simple to just note it, upload it, mark on the progression, and it's just seamless and it's so quick. I usually do it kind of as I'm doing it. Some people like to go back later. You can always keep your pictures there and go back to your pictures and then assign them to a student and assign a construct and where they are in the progression, or you can do it right in the moment. It's flexible. You can do voice recordings if you don't want to have the time to do a picture. You can just do a little voice recording of what you saw. The other examples that you see here are examples from Seesaw. So if any of you use Words Their Way, we use Words Their Way in our district. So I created a word sort on Seesaw using the drawing tool and using emojis. And I typed the words, and then the kids had to find an emoji to match the word, and they had to sort it. And then they record themselves reading the words, which is so valuable. And again, parents can see this too. So if they're having trouble, with the short U sound, we're going to be able to maybe see that when they're recording, or if they're having a difficult time reading the CVC words, we're going to be able to see that with this example. Or if they're not, we're going to be able to see that with this example. This, and I'm not going to play videos, but this is a recording. My kids do Write the Room. They love Write the Room sight word scavenger hunt. So we have a few minutes where we do that, and they record themselves reading the words. And again, I'm able to see, do they know their sight words, or is there one that they maybe need to work on? And then it gets sent to the parents too. The parents get to see it and the parents know. So we're really opening up formative assessment process, not only for us, but really parents know too, maybe what their student could use a little bit of extra support on at home. And this just holds the kids accountable, I think, too, for that learning. Rather than just doing the scavenger hunt, putting it in the basket, now I'm able to hear them and know if they can read the words. It's one thing if you go around the room and write them and copy them, but can you read them? So it's just really taking it to another level. And real quick, just since we did this week, we do investigations and we're in the SHAPE unit. So we use the SHAPE app, pattern block app on the iPad. I only have 5 iPads. I don't have a bunch of iPads, but the kids can screenshot this and take it into Seesaw, and they can tell me what shapes they used. And this little guy, when you play his recording on Seesaw, he actually counted how many rhombuses he used, how many hexagons he used, how many trapezoids he used. So I'm getting lots of great data here with object counting, as well as getting some formative assessment on what shapes the student knows as well. We also flip this and use it for homework. So the kids record at home on Seesaw and send it to me. So they take their books home that they're reading, and then we just say, we use the standards, and we have little question grid that we design based on the standards. Tell me what happened in the beginning, middle, and end of the story, or start at the beginning and tell me what happened in the story. Who are the characters in the story? We have nonfiction and fiction questions on our little grid, and so the kids tell me about their book on Seesaw every night, not every night, but a couple of nights a week, and they send it to me, and then I'm able to see what they're actually doing with that book that they take home. And I can hear their parents asking questions. I can also they can read the book, and then I can see what errors they're making at home, how their parents are correcting it, and if I need to kind of support and say, remember, make sure you look at that first sound, make sure you look at that last sound, use your super reading powers, use your sound power, make sure you're looking all the way through the word, so I can feed that to parents too in my comments, and they can take that and to help support their child at home as well. Just some other examples here when we were doing composing and decomposing numbers. You can see that example here with the color tiles, and I was not there. The kids post this, they record it, and then later on I can go back and look at it. And if I notice maybe they miscounted or they don't have their groupings and there's miscounting in that, we can go back and I can go back to that example with the student. We can sit down together, we can copy and edit it, and we can redo it. And again, this was app smashing from the Magnetic ABC app, where the kids build their words and they record themselves reading them, and I can go back and see again what they may need help with. And another little example of Jade's girl, and I love the spelling, because you can type in Seesaw, they can write on things in Seesaw. So again, she was able to tell me about her little girl. And what was great in Seesaw, she could go back and add drawings like the hair and the eyes and the face, which you can't always do with your pattern blocks that you're using on the table, or even when you're just using it on the app necessarily too. So quick little way about how I use assessment. Hope everybody was able to use something. Just want to remind you of my contact information, put some resources in there. I do have, you can find it in there, and then email address. Feel free to email me with any questions that you have. I put some resources in here for you if you're interested in knowing more about Seesaw. They have a YouTube channel, a kindergarten Facebook page. So I just wanted to make sure you had some little resources for yourself as well. Thank you so much.
So I hope everybody will join me in just applauding, even though we can't hear you. I'm sure you are just appreciative of Kim's time sharing what's going on in her classroom and how she's doing this. Again, you have her contact information. Also know that you have a team of people out there in the state supporting your efforts in implementing the formative assessment process. So be sure to reach out to your regional consultant. Also know that this webinar was recorded and will be posted on our wiki. And so if you weren't able to get her information right then, that'll be there on the wiki. So make sure you check that out. And again, just a big thank you for Kim, woohoo, for sharing the good things that are happening in her classroom. So thank you everybody for taking a moment. Lauren, any last thoughts?
No, I just wanted to say that I did put the evaluation link in the chat box.
Fantastic. We design these webinars, thank you, Lauren, we design these webinars based on y'all's feedback, what you want, what you need. And so please take a moment and let us know what you thought about today and what you want next time. We definitely take it into account and plan accordingly. All right, so thanks everybody, and have a wonderful afternoon. Happy February. Bye. Bye. Thanks, Kim.